Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
No one warns you about this part of getting older. And I'm not talking about the bills, the responsibilities, and like not even the pressure. I'm talking about the lack of certainty we get as we get older and start becoming adults. I'm aware I sound like some cringy kid from a Nickelodeon show, but it's quite interesting. When you're younger, it feels like life is moving forward on rails. You know, you got your set schedule, your set routine, you know where you're supposed to be within the day. Even if you didn't like it, it was clear. One of the first things I think you lose is certainty, you know, about life, about the future, and about whether you're doing things properly. As a kid, you look up to these adults and they always seem so sure. They speak with confidence, they make decisions quickly, and they seem to know what matters. What we don't realise though is that certainty is learned or quite often performed. I know this isn't completely satisfactory so far though, because even whilst pointing these things out, I'm still stuck in this phase of saying I don't know more often than I'm sure of things. You know, I don't know what path to go on. I don't know which path is the correct path to go on. I don't know if I'm at the stage I should be at life, if I'm behind or if I'm ahead. I don't know if I should stay or leave. And no one really talks about how uncomfortable that is and how time consuming it can be to deal with these thoughts. There's definitely this pressure to try and find certainty and commit as soon as you possibly can, to just figure it out, to, you know, choose a career path and stick to it, and that could be the rest of your life sailing. But life doesn't work like that. And that faking it can be quite damaging.
How bad?
You know, he said I couldn't. I can't wrestle anymore. I'm done.
That's what he said? I'm so sorry.
But the truth is that a lot of adulthood is actually about learning to live without clear answers. And this can shake people up, especially if you relied so heavily on structure before. You know, losing certainty doesn't mean you're failing. It just actually means you're making your own decisions now, which is a good thing. Another thing that nobody prepares you for is drifting friendships. I'm not saying you've got dramatic fallouts or big arguments up ahead, but I'm saying that distance will be a key factor in how much you want to see your friends. People get busy, and it's quite crazy, even at my age, how hard it can be at times just to get two people's schedules to line up just for a drink. And suddenly, friendships that you thought would be permanent and for life become situational, seasonal, or rare. And yes, you may still care about them. And yes, you may meet up and feel like all that time hasn't really passed, but it's definitely different. And there's a grief in that no one really ever talks about, so it makes it quite hard to address. Nothing went wrong, things have just changed. The hardest part of this, but it's a key lesson, is you have to reach out. You know, you have to put the effort in now to make plans to see people, and also acknowledge that sometimes even with this effort, it's not enough and people will fade into memories. And that's a sad thing, but also a thing we can't really avoid. And it doesn't mean you did something wrong. It's just getting to the fact that proximity matters a lot in building relationships. Learning to let friendships evolve without resenting them or clinging to them is part of adulthood, I feel. And as I said, whilst it's a shame and it can feel annoying, there's also room for new friendships as well, which will be brilliant. And overall, these are part of the quiet skills you attain when growing up, I think, at least. And then there's this part, making decisions without having a map. There's no checklist anymore, and there's no clear timeline of when things should happen. Some people settle down early, some people chase their careers, some people move cities. A lot of people seem to find themselves in Southeast Asia. Some do all of the above and still feel so unsure. And then you start comparing. Even though you know you shouldn't, and we've all heard a million times, comparison is the thief of joy, blah, 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 blah. But you see people your age doing things you're not. And as we know, social media is the bane for this because it only promotes the good sides, as we already know. And this makes you think whatever they're doing is perfect, it fits them well, they're loving it. You know, am I late? Am I early? Did I miss something? Is the key questions it feels like we can constantly ask ourselves. Anyways, adulthood doesn't come with clear milestones that apply equally to everyone. It's not linear, it's not fair, and it's not consistent. You're making decisions with limited information about how you feel now and not how you'll feel in 5 years. Also partly why we shouldn't look back and blame certain decisions we've made, because we didn't have the info then that we do now, so how possibly could we have come to that conclusion? It can be terrifying when you think about it, but also can be exciting at the same time, as any decision you make could be the one moment that changes your life forever. We just got to be clear, I feel, that we don't have as much control as sometimes we like to think we do. We don't have a master plan, we're just adjusting as we go. And it gets easier, I feel, as time goes on. Never gets easy, but easier for sure. My way of looking at it is try and build something workable and then refine it over time. And then finally, something that people rarely admit, I feel, but a feeling of fakeness that we sometimes have in adulthood. Like you're playing a role, like everyone else got the memo except you. Inside, we can sometimes ask the question that, is this the real me I'm portraying? Or is it just what I deem a more functional version? You may feel confident one day and lost the next. You may feel mature in one situation and like you've come a long way. And then you may feel immature in another and feel like you've not progressed at all. And this doesn't mean you're pretending. It just means your identity isn't finished, nor will it ever be. Not to sound like I'm repeating myself too much, but adulthood isn't about becoming this one fixed person, as you are going to constantly adapt to new situations, new perspectives, and new circumstances in life. Often people who seem most sure of themselves are actually just the best at hiding how unsure they are of themselves and hiding that uncertainty. These people, they're not immune to it. You also don't realise how well you're hiding it too. You can often feel exposed, but realistically, people are looking at you the same way you're looking at them. My only bit of advice for this, to wrap it up, which helped me a lot, is to try and find who you are at your core. You know, journaling helps me out with this a lot, but find out what your interests are truly your interests without external validation, and pursue them with confidence. You know, life's too short to not pursue the interests you're genuinely interested in. Because if you don't do that, there'll become a day eventually, maybe soon, maybe not so soon, where you'll have that realization that you've been chasing an image you don't actually hold dear to yourself. Basically, stop chasing what other people are if it isn't you. If you feel you're in a phase where things feel unclear, unstable, and strangely quiet, just know you're not behind and you're definitely not alone. You're just in a part of life where structure has gone away and you're actually figuring out what matters to you without anyone else handing you the answer. I know I've talked a lot about the negatives of growing up, but I feel it's good to be aware of these things so you don't give yourself such a hard time. And whilst I've talked about these things, the fact is, growing up, there's a lot of positives to come. There's a lot of journeys, there's a lot of big milestones that will come eventually, and maybe when you least expect it, but there's a lot of joy to be had. And so don't be scared of growing up is what I'm trying to say. Try and turn that fear into excitement, because this is a great period to discover who you are.